These are the walls and cells of Alcatraz. Used to be home to the worst of the worst here in America, and right now they're thinking about reopening this and making this the future mega prison here inside the United States.
Really, it's not my decision on who would be sent here. In these conditions, nobody should be sent here.
Are you guys renovating Alcatraz right now?
Yes.
For Donald Trump? I am currently at the most infamous prison in America history. We're at the Alcatraz prison here, and this prison has been closed since 1963 until now, just maybe. It was once used to house the most notorious and violent criminals in all of America. However, it's been closed for decades now, but now talks are starting about reopening Alcatraz. President Donald Trump just announced he wants to reopen Alcatraz, ordering the Federal Bureau of Prisons and also the FBI Homeland Security to reopen Alcatraz. He's been floating the idea around on social media, and this is what he said. Rebuild and open Alcatraz. For far too long, America has been plagued by vicious, violent, and repeat criminal offenders. No longer will we tolerate these serial offenders who spread filth, bloodshed, and mayhem on our streets. I'm directing the Bureau of Prisons to reopen a substantially enlarged and rebuilt Alcatraz. So today we are going to be going inside of Alcatraz, talking to the people, showing you guys what Alcatraz is currently like and what it would take to reopen and renovate the prison of Alcatraz. Could this be the future Secot of America? Time will only tell. Today we are going inside of Alcatraz. Now we are about to enter into the main prison. This is where the main prison cells were at, and this is where all of the most dangerous people back in the 1960s would be. We had people like Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly inside of here, the worst of the worst. And just to show you guys how bad the prisons were here inside of Alcatraz, for every 3 prisoners there was 1 guard. Typically inside of a prison here in the United States, for every 250 prisoners there is 1 guard. That just shows how bad the people were here inside of Alcatraz. This was meant for the worst of the worst, and Donald Trump is saying this is where you want to send the worst of the worst. A famous quote here in Alcatraz is, break the rules and you go to prison. Break the prison rules and you go to Alcatraz. Now we're about to enter inside of the prison cells. When you first walk into the prison, the first thing you're met with is the room where they take their showers and receive all of their clothes. And when these prisoners came in here, they'd have no privacy, obviously, inside of these showers. And right now, this room doesn't look like it needs too much renovation. Everything looks like it's still intact. This could be a place where you wouldn't have to spend too much money as far as the renovation goes here inside of Alcatraz. Now we're heading up to the main prison cells here inside the prison. This is where they would then come once they would come through the process after getting vetted. And these prison cells, this is prison cell number 100, and these are the places where they would sleep. They had their cot, bathroom, toilet, sink, and then also 2 shelves here inside of their cells. And right now, human activists are complaining about potentially sending prisoners here into Alcatraz because these cells are only 7 feet tall, and to enter, it's only 6 feet tall. Is that such a big concern as far as human rights go for a prisoner to come inside of a prison cell? And what do you think about these prison cells? Right now, human activists are saying these are too small prison cells to be putting people into. The walls aren't tall enough. It's 6 feet tall for these people to go underneath. They have to duck to go into the side of the prison cell. Right now, it's a lot of controversy. What do you think about them potentially sending prisoners here inside of prison cells just like these here in Alcatraz?
I think if they're a prisoner, they don't need anything fancy, and I've also seen people in America living in worse conditions than this. At least in here, they have a toilet. I've seen a man who lived in Oakland, right outside of Oakland. He doesn't even have a toilet in his house. He lives in a shanty town. He has to go to the bathroom outside. At least prisoners have a toilet and running water.
People are worried about the cost and about the human rights as far as sending a prisoner here. Right now, they're arguing about the cell's height as far as entering into the cell. Should they be worried about the height of the cell for the prisoners?
I mean,
people aren't that height anymore.
Yeah, getting into it, a lot of people would probably bump their head. I didn't even notice that, but yeah, it's pretty short.
I don't think it's suitable for people today. They've gotten way taller, so it's not the same.
Okay, because people have gotten taller since 1963, they should probably not reopen.
Yeah.
Inside of the main holding for the prisoners here inside of Alcatraz is 3 stories high, full of cells top to bottom, right to left. There are prison cells everywhere here. The most amount of prisoners ever held here at a single time was 270, although the prison of Alcatraz has a capacity upwards of 325. Right now we're seeing prison cell 127, and on the 3rd story we're seeing prison cell 327. That just shows how many people and how much people this place could actually hold back in its day when it was actually an operating prison. Right now we have thousands upon thousands of tourists coming through here every single day. If tourists can walk through here every single day, shouldn't prisoners be able to walk through here theoretically if they were to renovate the prison cells as far as getting running water and making sure the bathrooms worked? And now we're going to enter into one of the cells. You can see right here, 5 feet wide, 7 feet tall, and then 9 feet long. Right here you have a toilet, you have a sink. Let's see if any running water is working right now. Currently no running water here on the island of Alcatraz, and right now around 4,000 tourists come through here every single day. That's $200,000 a day, and you times that by 365, that is upwards of $73 million that this prison is generating every single year in revenue just from tourists coming in to visit this place. In Donald Trump's tweet that he posted on Truth Media, he said they want to enlarge and rebuild Alcatraz, but how much would that cost? In 1962, they did the math as to how much it would cost to renovate before they did end up closing Alcatraz, and it was around $6 million. Nowadays, equated with inflation, that's upwards of $63 million. However, we know that would cost a lot more to do nowadays, especially with trying to bring in new water, new technology inside of these prison cells. But the question is, what would they actually have to renovate here inside the prison cells if this stuff is still working, the steel is still intact, the walls and the concrete is still there, the paint is falling apart. A lot of these places don't have any more running water or any toilets inside, but how much would the actual cost of Alcatraz being? Nobody really knows. If they would have to rebuild and take down all of the infrastructure here in Alcatraz, or would it simply be just coming through, repainting, making sure everything looks good, and also making sure that all of the nuts and bolts are still intact. How much do you think it would cost for them to renovate Alcatraz?
Billions.
Billions of dollars.
None of the pipes are working. They're all rusted out, corroded. The concrete is 110 years old and hasn't had any maintenance on it. There are places where you could stick your hand through the wall. They have to do an entire renovation of everything.
So you don't think it's possible for them to? You don't think it's possible
Everything's
for them to
possible
reopen
if you have
Alcatraz?
if you have an infinite amount of money, you can do anything you want. But as it stands today, this is not a usable prison. It's a historic site.
And how long do you think it would take them to renovate Alcatraz?
That's like saying there's no answer. It would take forever.
Are you guys renovating Alcatraz right now
Yes.
for Donald Trump?
Dude, I'm not doing any interviews.
You guys, so right now there are construction crews renovating Alcatraz. We don't know if that's because of Donald Trump or if that's just some renovations they are doing here. But they are revamping some parts of Alcatraz. They're already rebuilding some stuff here on the island, and these are actually different prison cells. These are larger prison cells here on this side of the prison. You have prison cells that are upwards of 18 feet long and about 7 feet wide compared to the smaller prison cells on that side. These prison cells look like they're equipped to house a prisoner. And if a prisoner was acting up, they'd then send them to D block, which is the rooms of solitary confinement. And before we go to the rooms of solitary confinement, I want to tell you guys about the sponsor of this video, Opus Clip. And Opus Clip is an AI editor that do it all in one place, easier, faster, and a whole lot quicker than you can do it yourself. Using the power of AI, you simply upload a video or copy a YouTube link into the Opus Clip Anything feature, and within minutes, you have tons of clips for you to post across the internet. You can generate B-roll, clean up audio, and reform for any platform all in one place. They make it so simple. But the question is, how good is Opus? I put it to the test over the past month and a half, and I've been able to grow a separate TikTok account to nearly 10,000 followers just by simply uploading clips that Opus has made me. That's how good the content is. And it is so simple that anybody can use it, young or old. I've even had my mom using it. Ain't that right, Brooker T?
It really is just that simple.
If my mom can use it, you can use it. And I want you guys to try it out for yourself. Go to opus.pro/clipanything and go ahead and give it a try. Once again, that's opus.pro/clipanything. Go ahead and use it for yourself. I promise you'll wonder why you didn't use it before. And now let's go into the rooms of solitary confinement. With Alcatraz being the prison for the worst of the worst, obviously they had solitary confinement rooms, and this is what a solitary confinement room looks like here inside Alcatraz. And the size of the rooms here inside the solitary confinement are about 6 feet wide, and they're actually about 8 feet tall compared to 7 feet inside of the other prison cells. Right now in the United States, there's over 61,000 people that are currently in solitary confinement. Inside here, people have made notes as to what they think about solitary confinement. Man was never intended to live as a caged animal. These are the faces of men that were held in solitary confinement here inside of Alcatraz. And this man by the name of Henry Harris Jr. was sent into solitary confinement for yelling and barking inside of the cell house. These other inmates right here were sent because they were telling other prisoners to not work, and this guy was caught cutting through his prison cell. Obviously, these prison cells aren't up to par with modern day prisons. However, they still technically would work. I'm not saying they should send prisoners here to Alcatraz, but if they really needed it and the resources weren't there, this prison does look capable as far as keeping prisoners inside of these prison cells if they were to bring in new bedding and update the showers, or if they were to update the bathrooms inside of the cells, or if they were to create massive bathrooms inside of the prison, they could also house prisoners here on Alcatraz. Currently across the world, there's lots of controversies around prisons, especially with the new prison in El Salvador called Secot. And when you compare Secot to a prison like Alcatraz, Secot is actually a lot more advanced as far as technology and security goes, as nobody has escaped that prison, and that is home to the worst of the worst. And inside of those prison cells, those prisoners will actually never even see the light of sun again. The prisoners here inside of Alcatraz, theoretically, if they were able to reopen Alcatraz, renovate it, and send prisoners here to Alcatraz, they would be a prison where the prisoners could go in and out of their prison cells, walk around the island, and be away from any communities where they could potentially harm. Right now, the border czar, Tom Homan, says that if we do not open up these prisons in America, we're not going to have anywhere to send the most violent and dangerous criminals in the United States and migrants that came across the border illegally that are part of gangs. And by opening a prison like this, they would actually be able to house and put more bad people off the streets into prisons away from communities. And Donald Trump has actually ordered the Federal Bureau of Prisons and the FBI, Homeland Security, and the Department of Justice to reopen and rebuild Alcatraz to make this pretty much like a modern day Secot here inside of America. Do you think it's a good or bad idea to reopen Alcatraz for the worst of the worst?
Oh, no good.
Not a good idea.
No. I think it's an idea from a child.
This person right here is from Germany, and in the United States right now, a lot of people refer to Donald Trump as a Nazi and Hitler. Do you think that's fair to refer to Donald Trump as Hitler or as a Nazi?
He's on the way.
Really? You think so?
Yes. In Germany, it starts so.
In Germany, it starts slow, and here in the United States, you think Donald Trump could potentially become the next Hitler?
Trump is on the way, but he's not alone. There's no more people on the world who are on the way to Hitler.
Do you think it'd be a good idea to reopen Alcatraz for the worst of the worst?
I don't know if it's possible, but it could be.
Right now, it looks like they're doing some renovations. Do you think that's because of Donald Trump and the tweet he sent out?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Would you support them sending prisoners here to Alcatraz?
No.
Why not?
It's terrible conditions, you know.
Would you say these conditions are too bad to put somebody in prison right now?
Yeah, terrible. In the dark, and, you know, I know they deserve it, but, you know, it's a little too far.
Do you think prisoners deserve to come here to Alcatraz?
No, this is a horrible place.
So if they did horrible things inside their communities, where should they go?
First, I've worked in a jail, so you might want to define what horrible is.
Okay, say somebody has killed, extorted, and is a member of a dangerous gang like MS-13. Would you consider that dangerous enough to send them to a prison like Alcatraz?
I think there's a place for everybody, and it depends on what their crime may be and what they're convicted of. In the condition of it now, no, nobody should be sent here.
What type of prisoners would you like to see come here to Alcatraz?
Depends on, the crimes. Like, say, somebody that wants to bomb our Twin Towers, something like that.
Repeat offenders, should they get sent here?
Depends on the crime. Really, it's not my decision on who would be sent here. In these conditions, nobody should be sent here.
Do you guys think it'd be a good idea to reopen Alcatraz?
No. I also think it's not a good idea.
You gotta renovate everything, right? I reckon you should remove everything here and make a party island out of this. San Francisco would make a lot of money.
So they should take down this prison and make it a place for festivals.
Yeah, why not?
Do you guys think they should reopen Alcatraz?
Do I think they should reopen Alcatraz? Honestly, no, I don't. I feel like if they were to reopen it, they'd have to remodel it, and I just don't think it'd hit the same.
And do you think it'd be a good or bad idea?
I think it's a good idea to reopen it.
We're walking inside these hallways. Shouldn't prisoners theoretically be able to walk in these hallways if we're walking through it right now?
Yeah, I agree.
Do you guys think it'd be a good idea to reopen Alcatraz?
Yes.
And why so?
Because bad people come here.
Do you think it'd be a good use of tax dollars to reopen it?
No, a good use of tax dollars would be free healthcare and free college.
Do you guys think Trump's a dictator?
Yes.
Would you support Donald Trump in his idea of reopening Alcatraz?
No.
Should they reopen Alcatraz?
No, absolutely not.
And why not?
Because it is a historical place, and I think we should try and keep history the way it is.
Would you say this is inhumane to send prisoners here?
Potentially. Yeah.
Who do you think they should send to Alcatraz?
Honestly, me.
Okay. And what kind of crimes do you think somebody would commit to get themselves here to Alcatraz if they were to reopen it?
Dangerous people. Criminals that are real criminals, you know? Deadly, violent.
Yeah. Right now there's a lot of controversy with prisons. For instance, you got face tattoos. Do any of your face tattoos have anything to do with gangs?
No, I'm not gang related at all.
And what if somebody were to pull you over and shake you down and say, well, that tattoo that you have right there, that upside down cross means you're part of some gang?
I would say no. Not everything's a gang, you know?
He is not gang affiliated, though.
Definitely not. Never been, never will be. That's my main
the
thing.
Slenderman tattoo, though, what does that mean?
Nothing really, I just like death. It's interesting, because it's like, you know, the last of it.
Not gang affiliated, but you like the concept of death.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just the last breath, you know?
You ever kill anybody?
No, I'm too nice for that.
So who owns Alcatraz? Is it the federal government or the government of California?
So it's managed by the National Park Service as a National Historic Landmark today.
So the
National Park, the National Park Service manages all of the operations in partnership with a lot of different groups like the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy and Alcatraz City Cruises.
That does make it interesting that Alcatraz is not owned by the government of California. It's owned by the federal government. That means if Donald Trump actually does want to rebuild and revamp Alcatraz, that means he actually has a lot higher likelihood of it actually happening because he doesn't have to go through the state of California to make it happen, as it is owned by the federal government. Do you guys think they should reopen Alcatraz?
Hell nah. For what reason though? Like, what you mean?
To send the worst of the worst, they say.
Nah.
Not really. Like, I mean, they had to make it up to date or something like that. I don't know.
And should normal everyday felons get sent to Alcatraz?
No.
Nah, hell no.
Are any of you guys felons?
No.
Nah.
Would you guys ever get sent to Alcatraz?
Hell no.
Hell nah.
Hell no. I lose my mind in this bitch. I lose my mind in this bitch.
Throughout the history of Alcatraz, there were 13 prison break attempts and 36 men tried to get out and escape from Alcatraz, and only 3 men are allegedly ones that were successful in escaping. They never know whether or not they made it to the other side, and to get to that side of San Francisco, it's a 1.2 mile swim, and you may not think that's a very hard swim. However, the waves are intense, the wind is crazy, the water temperature is freezing, and the ocean here along the Golden Gate Bridge is some of the most highly densely populated area for great white sharks. It would not be an easy swim. However, if this video gets 100,000 likes, maybe I'll make a swim for it. If you guys give this video a like, try to swim across to see how hard it is to go from Alcatraz to the Golden Gate Bridge. 100,000 likes, and maybe we'll make the attempt. And do you guys think you guys could escape Alcatraz, as it is only about 1.2 miles away from San Francisco?
I can't swim 1.2 miles.
I'll probably spend like a mile. Somebody got to meet me halfway. So, you know, other than that, hell no.
Do you think Donald Trump wants to reopen Alcatraz to compete with the El Salvador prisons?
Basically, sorta.
Could be that too.
We don't got the American version really. So he's trying to make it that. Honestly.
It's all the money thing at the end of the day. It's all about money.
Do you guys support Donald Trump in reopening Alcatraz?
No.
I don't get into all that, you know. It's just
Definitely not a Trump fan at all.
No.
No.
And why do you guys, what makes you guys not supportive of Donald Trump, and especially with this idea of Alcatraz?
Just all his ideas are out there. They're wild. I mean, there's no compassion for anybody. You know, it's just his rule and that's it. You know, if we could live under his thumb, he'd be happy.
Murderers and drug dealers, do you have compassion for them?
I think if you do something wrong, it should be accountable. And you have to be held accountable.
It's not only gang members, it's anybody who continues to...
Yeah, so if they were to reopen Alcatraz and make it a prison for the worst of the worst, where people aren't able to receive rehabilitation to get back into society, would you support that?
No.
Obviously, with a prison, you also need to have staffing and you need to have a warden. This right here is the warden's mansion. The warden had 22 rooms inside his mansion. In the 1970s, some people came onto the island and lit it on fire along with a bunch of other buildings. I don't know why the warden needed 22 rooms for his mansion here on the island of Alcatraz. It's a little shady, if you ask me, why he had 22 rooms here on the island of Alcatraz. I don't know if they're bringing women over here or whatnot. the warden was obviously getting stuff done here when he was on Alcatraz. We've now moved into the warden's office, and this location here inside the prison, you can tell it's a lot more ran down. Cobwebs are still everywhere here inside of this part, and to renovate Alcatraz, it realistically would take a lot of work, as a lot of this prison is not up to par with modern day technology. Most things here inside of Alcatraz would need to be renovated. However, most of the stuff is built with cement, concrete, and the structure looks like it hasn't moved, and it's still in good condition. So I don't know exactly what they would do for renovations here, whether it just be painting or bringing in new stuff, bringing in new technologies. In order for Alcatraz to become a full functioning prison here in the United States, once again, it does face some complications, such as where would the sewage go to? Anciently, it was just gone back into the Pacific Ocean. However, people do not want that to happen. There's lots of issues with human rights activists and human rights organizations as far as whether or not it is humanable and sane enough to put people here inside of this island. Also, it's now a national landmark, and the maintenance for an island like this would be very extensive. However, Donald Trump does say that it would bring law and order back here into the United States, and it would be for the worst of the worst. Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys next video.